So these are the scissors, ladies and gentlemen, that I will use for this live demonstration. You can see I have a red balloon attached to the Gomco clamp. This pair of tweezers, you will see what I do with them. I don't have a safety pin, but I will describe how doctors use the safety pin with the Gomco clamp. This is a live demonstration for educational purposes only. I am totally opposed to infant circumcision. I am an intactivist, and this is the Gomco circumcision clamp. I have, you can see my laptop at the top of the screen below the warning, educational demonstration of Gomco circumcision clamp. I have the article up written by a doctor, an expert on the Gomco clamp, and I'm going to be reading to you from that during this live. Now, obviously, I have never done a circumcision. I got this Gomco clamp off of eBay several years ago. I think it cost me $5. I've actually seen these going on Amazon I saw one the other day. They wanted $200 for this. This is it. This is a real Gomco clamp. This is the 1 point, let me bring that closer. Make sure I see that. Yeah. This is the 1.1 centimeters. They come in several other sizes. And one really, really terrible thing about the Gomco clamp and the relationship between parents and hospital doctors and nurses. I posted on social media the other day, it was a screenshot. The nurse actually said to the father, as they were preparing the boy for circumcision, how big is your son? Referring to the part of his body that this device is used on. And the father said, how big? And the nurse said, well, the devices come in several sizes. So I want to know, I want to get the right size for your son. So he said, I don't know. He said, measure. So she went and she came back. And this was he made this post on Facebook. So she came back and she said, oh yeah, he needs the large. And so the dad actually posted on Facebook, proud dad moment, they need the large, which is, it just shows you something about the just the terrible cultural status of circumcision that such dialogue should ever happen. I have demonstrated this before in a live, and it's on a live on Facebook. It's always very, very, this is the device that was used on me. And most American men who are circumcised, this is the device that is used on us, the Gomco clamp. I have said many times, and I repeat it here for all my TikTok friends and viewers, this is among the most evil inventions in human history. This is among the most evil inventions in human history, ladies and gentlemen. The Gomco circumcision clamp. So bear with me. I know some of you will be in and out of this. I'm not going to rush it. There's no way to rush it. Obviously, this is very unnerving to me to be holding this device in my hands. This is the device that was used on my body and on the bodies of most American men who are circumcised. There are two other devices. One is called the Plastibell, and the other is called the Plastibell circumcision device, and the other is called the Mogan clamp circumcision device. But essentially, they do the same thing that this fiendish machine does. I'm going to disassemble it in just a second. Let me read to you a little bit from the article that I have up, and so I'm going to go over here to my laptop. I'm not going to be moving anything because I don't want to disturb the framing of the picture, but I believe that the microphone will work just as well. So I'm going to go over here. Like I said, I've never done anything like this before. Yeah, okay, so I'm at my laptop, and I'll actually show you. I can't show you the. So this is what I have here. I can't show you what's below on this, but it's from a Contemporary Pediatrics. So I'll put that back in place. So, and it's written by Dr. Nathan Heitzman. You can find it at contemporarypediatrics.com, newborn circumcision Gomco method. And he says, so this was published in the magazine, in the journal Contemporary Pediatrics. He calls it a how-to on Gomco circumcision, the method most commonly used in the United States. And he says, Gomco clamp sizes 1.1, 1.3, and 1.4. So you can see we have the 1.1 here. And I've put, you'll see how I've done it when I disassemble this in a few minutes. But you can see I've created a plastic model of the part of the baby that this machine is used on. I'm almost trembling holding this in my hands, ladies and gentlemen. Working in this movement, we see men run away from us in terror when they find out what they endured. It's just a terrible thing using this apparatus on a baby. Terrible thing. It's a crime against the child. It's a crime against society. So that is, you can see it's the 1.1, and it's got a pretty good weight to it. And I've often thought, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So many thoughts coming to me, as you can imagine. Here. So, I'm back looking at the journal. I'll keep my hand in the frame so that I can stay oriented here. So I'm here at my laptop and reading from the article. The article is in Contemporary Pediatrics. If you want to look up this article, if you just type in Contemporary Pediatrics, and the title of the article is Newborn Circumcision, the Gomco Method. Google should bring that up very, very quickly. So he starts out, suggested equipment for Gomco circumcision. And he gives the Gomco clamp, and he gives the 3 sizes. The next thing that he says is restraint board. Now, there are some, I posted a video the other day. It's actually on TikTok. I can't remember the OBGYN's name. Is it Dr. Jackie? But it's on my TikTok channel here, this channel you're watching right now. But she said, she actually, let me bring it up. I have my, I can bring it up real quick on my I have my desktop here next to me, because I want to give you accurate information about how you can, oh yeah, so here it is.
So hey guys, I am Dr. Jackie, and I am going to walk you through what happens during circumcision. Once baby is brought into the nursery, we then bring them into the circ room, identify them with their hospital bands, and the mom or dad both have signed consent. Baby's in the room. We do lidocaine.
You can hear Dr. Jackie talking. Now, so if you go back, when did I post that? That was
5 minutes. My baby's
5 days
placed
ago.
on the table, and here is actually sterile glove.
So I'll pause that because if you want to see Dr. Jackie, talking about this very device, it's right here on my channel, and I posted it 5 days ago. It's Dr. Jackie, and the title of the TikTok video, of my TikTok video, is Circumcision Explained. And in this in this video by Dr. Jackie, I don't want to go through the whole video now to find that sound clip, but she says that she actually prefers that her nurse hold the baby down for the circumcision. The reason I say that is that I'm looking at the second suggested equipment for Gomco circumcision is restraint board. And the restraint board is actually an invention called the circumcision restraint board, and they've made a cute little name of it called the Circumstraint. It's a fiendish device. Think of waterboarding a baby, but you're not waterboarding him. You're laying him in a molded plastic board that has hollowed out places for his head, his arms and legs, and an elevated area under the genitals, so that the doctor has an operating place. It's just fiendish. Everything about infant circumcision is fiendish, ladies and gentlemen. It is just absolutely a crime. It's just terrible. It's just terrible. And I've often, I've wanted to say that twice, but I'll get to it because so now the third thing he wants is a pacifier and sugar water. What other surgery would you perform on a human being where the main anesthesia is sugar water? Sugar water. You see, ladies and gentlemen, they cannot properly anesthetize a baby. That anesthesia is too dangerous. Too dangerous. So they use a little bit of lidocaine sometimes. Most doctors don't because it takes extra time. A really good circumciser, a doctor, he can bring in 5 patients a week. He can, like say today, this is Friday, he could bring in 5 or 6 babies today, have all the moms come at 11 o'clock in the morning, have them bring the babies in, and he can knock off 5 or 6 circumcisions easily in 1 hour. And I saw a price recently. One doctor charges $2,000 for a circumcision. The average price seems to be around $500 or $600. But these doctors they are greedy and corrupt. The doctors that are doing this to our babies, ladies and gentlemen, they are greedy and corrupt. We've had doctors tell us to our faces, "I cannot afford to give up the second income." Other doctors said, my income from circumcision put all my children through college. 1 hour a week, they can make an extra $100,000 a year. 1 hour a week doing only certain, and then they do their other thing the rest of their office hours. So this is like bonus money for them, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why most of them do not use anesthesia. Even though the official recommendation is that they use, and in fact, that's the 4th item on this list that I'm reading from, the 1% lidocaine without epinephrine. And then he's got a sterile skin marker, 3 clamps. So this is probably time for me to open up this Gomco clamp. And this is the part that I'm not really skilled at, ladies and gentlemen, because when this Gomco clamp comes apart, it can be very, very difficult to put back together because, I wanted to identify this. I wanted to identify I'll take it apart and then identify the pieces for you. Actually, you know what? You're a forgiving audience. I'm going to just take it apart. I'm just going to take it apart. That'll make it easier for me. And I found out, and I had just figured this out last night as I was rehearsing for this. This is the bell. This is the bell of the Gomco clamp, and I'll talk to you about the bell in just a second. But if you look at these two little pins, they actually are different sizes. You can see this one is just a little bit longer than this one, and I could never figure out why sometimes it worked. It was easy to slip in, and sometimes but you've got to you get it out of this out of the hole in the plate. I believe this is called the plate. I will confirm that in just a second. And then it fits on. It's got to go in that, or does it go in the other way? Yeah, it's got to go in that way. So yeah, so you've got to get you've got to get it. It doesn't if you try to get it on that way, it just doesn't work. Oh, this is really unnerving. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I really do. I hate this. I hate having to do this work. I came of age in the, I went to college in the late 60s. I came of age in the 50s and 60s. I grew up in the 1950s and 1960s when people were protesting everything. And I was a part of all of those social movements. The movement for civil rights, the movement to stop the war in Vietnam, against the draft, gay rights. I was a part of all those movements. I protested on the front lines in all those movements. And in the early 70s, as I became sexually active with a woman I loved, I realized that, and I had read a book in college, in my last year of college, that planted some seeds. I realized that circumcision had done some very, very nasty things to me. And that, of course, is its purpose. American doctors have wrapped circumcision in benign explanations, but it historically, traditionally, and culturally, circumcision is meant to injure male sexuality. It's meant to diminish male sexuality, and it hurts women too. But so I looked around and I thought, why is no one protesting circumcision? And I talked to my friend about that, and for 5 or 6 years, we kept waiting for someone to protest circumcision because people were protesting everything else. And I finally realized, well, you know what? If no one else is going to protest circumcision, we'll do it. We'll do it. So here I am. Much against my will, I've been enlisted into this social movement to protect all children from newborn genital mutilation. That's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Start a demonstration. I will be there. Thank you. Thank you for that. Let me just give you a heads up. I am Brother K. I am the founder of Bloodstained Men. We have a website, bloodstainedmen.com. And right now, we are, in the next few days, we will be releasing our schedule for our first tour of the new year. We're going to be in Florida for 13 days, January 20th to February 1st. And we're doing what we call double headers. We're going to be in 2 cities a day. So if you live in Florida, or you can get to Florida, or you have friends in Florida, you can go to bloodstainedmen.com, and right now you'll see our last tour up there. That was our Southeast tour, which we finished last month. But we are working hard. We've already, everything's in place, and we're just dotting a few I's and crossing a few T's, and we will be releasing the 2023 Florida Circumcision Crisis Protest Tour schedule in the next few days on bloodstainedmen.com. Man, oh man. This is painful for me, ladies and gentlemen. I try to make it look easy, and I think the reason I told you about my own history is that I was kind of enlisted into this movement because I didn't see anyone else step up to do it. I I kept waiting for someone else to protest against circumcision, and it didn't happen. So in 1980, my friend Carol Babiak and I, we protested against circumcision at the California State Capitol and other cities in Northern California. The Associated Press carried our story. The Sacramento Bee put us on the front page of their Metro section. ABC Nightly News picked up the story from the local affiliate in Sacramento. So we were very, very pleased with the progress that we made from our protests in 1980 and 1981. But and I thought that would do it. And if you've been an Intactus for a while, you've probably heard that before. People come into this movement and they think, well, it's just a question of getting the word out there. Once parents hear that circumcision is cruel, destructive, and that doctors around the world reject it and refuse to do it, only American doctors will do it in hospitals and medical clinics. I mean, there are a few rare exceptions, but by and large, circumcision is an American thing. But it persists, and no one can understand why it persists. And my heart is beating here. My heart is beating just having to talk to you about this fiendish machine that I've disassembled in front of you. I have to put it together again. I have to insert this facsimile. And I went through this torture. This is torture, ladies and gentlemen. American doctors are torturing our sons. They are literally torturing our sons. I went through this torture, and all right, let me stay on track here. So at any rate, here I am. And I hope you will join us in Florida. So I'm back to contemporary pediatrics. If you want to follow along on the article with me, you can type into the Google search bar contemporary pediatrics, and the name of the article is Newborn Circumcision, the Gomco Method, and it's by Nathan Heitzman, Hitzman. And you can actually bring that up. I don't know. Some of you are really good on these smartphones. You can bring up two screens at once. I still have trouble trying to figure that out. But at any rate, that's why I have my second. I could never do the live without this laptop in the background. I can show you what I'm reading from here. We haven't gotten to the graph. He has graphic pictures on this. So you can see it's trying to figure out, I don't want to, there it is. Restraint board, pacifier and sugar water, lidocaine, 3 clamps. So that's where I am now. 3 clamps, also known as hemostats, mosquito clamps. All right, so let me put that down. And oh man. So I don't have hemostats, but a hemostat is it's essentially like a scissors. It's just got a specialty end. They're all very much like pliers. But let me show you. So man, this is disturbing. I apologize for the heartbreak that I am causing many of the viewers, men and women alike. I know some of you are mothers who were told that you had to circumcise your son. A lot of you are told that it's mandatory or that it's for his own good. I just wish that we could have reached you in advance. I know some of you are men who are just hearing for the first time that circumcision is an American thing. A few other nations had brief encounters with circumcision, but chiefly the United Kingdom and Australia. But circumcision has all but been eradicated from the English-speaking world. except for the United States and to a lesser extent in Canada. It's still a problem in Canada too, about 1/3 of the newborn boys across Canada. And it's higher in some provinces of Canada than in others. So I have seen that if you've been on TikTok for a while, you know that the name of the male sex organ can get an article, can get a video muted. Now, in fairness to TikTok, whenever I've inadvertently left in, and actually I did leave the name of the male sex organ in a video that I posted the other day, but generally I mute the name because if the TikTok software picks up the word for the male sex organ, it often will mute. It often will mute the video, and then you have to appeal it. Like I said, in fairness to TikTok, they have never, they have always apologized and restored the sound. But I don't want to risk having this live video muted or taken down. So I will use the word infant, newborn male infant sex organ. So you can see this. This red balloon is and I've seen training videos for pediatricians where they actually train on a similar device. They make something like this, and at the med school they will actually teach a whole classroom of new doctors, and they'll all have their own little plastic sex organ. Much like this. But again, I find myself getting it. I want to be thorough. I want to be thorough because I'm going to be saving this live video. The thing with a TikTok live video is once it's over, you will not be able to see it. You will not be able to access it. So once it's over, however, they do save it in your TikTok settings, and I will be able to download it and use it. And so that's why I want to be thorough. I don't want to have to do this more than once. It's probably more disturbing to me than it is to you. And if you can imagine how disturbed this is making you feel, I'm having to hold this thing and show you what is done, and of course, reliving this nightmare that was implanted in my brain on the day of my birth. I was circumcised on the day of my birth, and that is still fairly common. I see a post like that almost every day. Babies are being circumcised at 6 and 7, 10 hours of age, 14, 16 hours. Generally, the doctors seem to be circumcising them at 1, 2, 3 days old. Some will go 6, 7 days. I've even seen, because some insurances won't pay for circumcision after day 30, I've seen some babies get circumcised at day 28, 29, 30. Yes, I had, once I became aware of circumcision, I actually did, and this is not unusual to remember your circumcision, either through therapy or in a dream. And the body remembers. We human beings, we are not barnacles. We start learning at birth. Well, you've heard that, we learn in the womb, but we start learning in real life. We start learning fast. At birth, we learn. Circumcision is a major trauma and a major learning experience for the child. So I'll get back to this sex organ in just a minute. Let me go back to the article, because I'm going to follow this article. I think it's a good framework. And as far as I know, there's no time limit on a TikTok live. So bear with me. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I see what I was going to show you next. Yeah. So, well, let me go. Actually, yeah, I keep getting ahead of myself. I would like to rush through this, but honestly, to do it justice. So, the article, he says he wants 3 clamps. He wants a blunt probe, and the probe. I hate to tell you what the probe does, but I've seen this. I can show you the probe. The probe. It's think of an ice pick, but the end of the ice pick is not pointed. It's got like a little bulb on the end. That's what a circumcision probe is. I've also seen them use hemostats, but basically they insert the blunt probe. Let me move this stuff out of the way so I can get a good clear background for you. So this is the P opening here, and it's completely sealed at birth, with the exception there's a muscle in there. The normal sex organ has a muscle in there that controls, opens and closes for urination in the child. But so the first stage in circumcision, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but then hopefully I won't have to do this. This seems to me the best way to do it. So why he wants the blunt probe, and just imagine, because you can use, and I've seen them use both. It's operator choice. I've seen them use the hemostats, and just imagine that these are not scissors, but they're a specialty scissor-like, plier-like device called a hemostat, and without the pointed, without the sharp razor end of the scissors. But what they do is they insert the hemostats. They force open the pee hole, and this is all violent. I mean, they use the words. I've seen a lot of these descriptions, and when they tell you how to do it, they use the words gently insert. There's nothing gentle you can do with a newborn child's sex organ. It is a sealed structure, and you have to rip it apart. And so they can use the word gentle all they want, but to get from here to here to here, you have to rip open the pee hole. And then, this is nightmarish, ladies and gentlemen. What they do is they now, and oh man, this is really upsetting. They'll take the probe. Yeah, I'm gonna demonstrate both ways, because when they use the probe, they also then use the hemostat. Well, I've seen it's really operated preference, what they're used to. So they insert the probe into the pee opening of the foreskin, which is not the urethra. The urethra is in the head of the baby's sex organ, but they force it in, and then there's a membrane inside the foreskin. Oh man, this is makes me want to curse. It makes me want to curse. This is so effed up, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we're dealing with. This is so effed up. So you all know what the head of the male sex organ looks like. It is tucked away inside the foreskin, the glans. It's also called the glans. The glans, G-L-A-N-S, not a gland. It's not a G-L-A-N-D. It's the glans, G-L-A-N-S. It's a sealed structure. The glans, the head of the baby's sex organ, is protected by the foreskin, which is sealed at birth. It's a sealed structure. It only opens and closes for urination, and that's done by a special muscle. I've always called it the dartos muscle. I posted a video yesterday. Actually, let me, I'm going to take my time on this. I'm not going to rush because as far as I know, there's no time limit for a TikTok video. And I will then be able to download this video later and edit it but I also want to give you the benefit of all these other videos that are on my page. So let me go to this. I'm looking at my TikTok page, and it's a video I posted, I believe, yesterday. Yeah, and it's
the foreskin is a much misunderstood structure in our human anatomy. I would say it's mostly misunderstood because it's missing in action. So what are we missing? Let's talk about the foreskin. What's it doing there? What are its functions? I don't know that my drawing is perfect. It's kind of a cross section. The foreskin is actually a double layered skin that comes over the penis, is the shaft skin of the penis, but then drapes over the glands, extends beyond it, and it has little muscle tissue called the peripenic muscle, the around the penis muscle, which fibers contract to kind of close the aperture once it's gotten past the glands. So we have kind of a tapered look to the penis when it's intact.
So that is Gil Headley. I posted it's the anatomy of the foreskin. It's on my TikTok page. I posted it yesterday under the heading Foreskin Education by GilHeadley.com. All right, let me get back to the article, because we will get to all of this in proper time. Yes, actually, women are the mothers. All of us are born. I see a critical comment here. Women are the mothers. Women have a maternal instinct. All of us are born from the body of a woman. So yes, I think women, this is a very important issue for women. And men often cop out by saying, this is for men to decide. I always say, what is the structure and function of the foreskin? And if you don't know, you're not qualified to make that decision for your son. So let me go back to the article. Okay, so now he does want, he wants scissors also, and he wants a safety pin. When I get to a certain point in this article, I will explain to you why he wants a safety pin for the Gomco clamp operation on the child, on the newborn child's sex organ. But it's fiendish. It's fiendish. Essentially, they safety pin the cut foreskin together to insert it into the Gomco clamp. All right. And then he says he wants petroleum, gauze strip, and so, yeah, and then he says other necessary disposable supplies. All right, so now he says several techniques for performing circumcisions are in general use. In this article, I focus on Gomco circumcision since this is the method most commonly used in the United States. Gomco stands for Goldstein Medical Company, he goes on, the original manufacturer of the clamp used in this method. And you can see I've, earlier in this video, I began the video with the Gomco clamp assembled, and I disassembled it at some point in this video. So I'm scrolling through. He's talking about circumcision. So he doesn't want. He says, don't give your baby anything to eat at least an hour before the circumcision, to minimize the risk of aspiration. And this is a fact, ladies and gentlemen. The children will throw up. These boys will commonly throw up. They will throw up from the pain and from the trauma, the distress. And I have seen, and the nurses turn the baby's head sideways so he doesn't inhale his own vomit. And that's called aspiration. So you don't want the baby to inhale his own vomit. And so that's why they don't want children eating before circumcision. So there's nothing in their stomach to vomit up. Circumcision is corrupt from top to bottom, ladies and gentlemen. Top to bottom. Okay, so this is called the rocker arm. And I'm going to assemble this in just a second. This is called the rocker arm. Rocker arm and yoke. Let me see if I turn this. All right, and obviously self-evident. This is the nut. This is the base plate. And if you're just tuning in, this is the 1.1 centimeter. And by the way, this is razor sharp in there. And you'll see why in a minute, why it has to be. And this is the bell. And you can the bell, and I call that the bell arm. But this is the bell. This is the action part. This is the whole point of the Gomco clamp, this fiendish bell. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a common size. This is a common size Gomco clamp. Can you imagine? Look at this. This is insane. Look, the head of the baby's sex organ goes into that bell. Can you imagine? This is my little finger. This is my pinky, ladies and gentlemen. Can you imagine? Look at that. Can you imagine? This is an authentic Gomco clamp, ladies and gentlemen. This is how small the newborn child's sex organ is. This bell is going to protect the head of his sex organ, the glands. Yes, from a bench vise. Yes. It takes my breath away in horror and outrage. Let's see. So I don't think I want to assemble it quite yet. Let me. I'm scrolling through here. I'm not going to read everything, but listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to what he says. He says, I'm reading right from his article. If you want to follow along, you can go to Contemporary Pediatrics, go to Google and type in Contemporary Pediatrics. Let me scroll back up here and give you the exact name. The journal is called Contemporary Pediatrics, Newborn Circumcision, the Gomco Method. Newborn Circumcision, the Gomco Method, Contemporary Pediatrics, by Nathan Heitzman, Hitzman. And he says, the device, so I'm reading from the article, the device is designed to crush the foreskin between the bell and the base plate. And when I assemble it, you'll see exactly how that works. Let me read that again. If you're just tuning in, these are two of the main parts of the Gomco clamp, ladies and gentlemen. And reading directly from Dr. Heisman's instructions, an article in Contemporary Pediatrics, quote, the device is designed to crush the foreskin between the bell and the base plate. Words out of a nightmare, ladies and gentlemen, except it's real. Words out of a nightmare. We are introducing our precious, precious sons into a world that begins with the worst nightmare imaginable, the amputation of the sensory structure of his sex organ. So listen to this. And so clearly this has happened. He says, actually, let me show it to you. Let's see if I can get that in there. Oops, I've got to scroll down. That's got a forbidden photograph at the top of that page. Ooh, they're all over here. Look, he says, before beginning the procedure, make sure that all of the parts of the device fit together properly. Mismatched parts sometimes get autoclaved together. Autoclave that's the way that they sterilize these devices after use. And you can see, you're talking something so small. This is the 1.1, but there's also a 1.3 and a 1.4. Let me double check on those. Make sure he gives the size at the beginning. Yeah, 1.3 and 1.4. So you can imagine the difference in size between a 1.1 and a 1.3 and a 1.4. I mean, you can see how easily it would be to put. They throw a whole bunch of these into an autoclave and sterilize them, and then they go to use them, and it's all machine tooled to fit precisely. But you can still get them. You can still get them to fit together, and someone who doesn't know what they're doing will put the wrong bell and the wrong plate, and it leads to disaster. And clearly, I've seen this mentioned in this. I've seen that warning mentioned in every article about the Gomco clamp, because clearly, many mistakes are made and continue to be made since all of them issue that warning. He says, yes, before beginning the procedure, make sure that all of the parts of the device fit together. Mismatched parts sometimes get autoclaved together. So now he says, oh, and listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is the insanity of circumcision, ladies and gentlemen. This is the insanity. Listen to what he says. This is the insanity of circumcision, ladies and gentlemen. And parents don't understand this. Parents think it's like you get those checks in the mail, like any check you get that where you have to fold it and there's a perforation. They say cut here or fold here, and well, no, the male sex organ does not have a cut here line. There's no cut here line. So this is what he says. I'm reading right from his article, ladies and gentlemen. Quote, marking the foreskin to guide removal. He calls it removal. A lot of euphemisms in this circumcision business. Why don't they just come right out and call it amputation? They're amputating part of the child's sex organ, ladies and gentlemen. It's not removal. It is amputation. It is amputation, not removal. Well, it's removal too, but that's such an innocuous word. So quote, marking the foreskin to guide removal. he says, determining how much foreskin to take off often presents difficulties for learners. So a lot of doctors, pediatricians, OBGYNs, even medical students, doing circumcisions turns their stomach, and they refuse to do it. Some do it for a few years, and they're like, no more. I met one pediatrician, and he said to me at his retirement party, he's going to get a Gomco clamp and he's going to smash it with a sledgehammer. That's what and he works as at a major pediatric clinic. He said his retirement party is going to be smashing a circumstraint board. I'm sorry. He wants to smash a circumstraint board with a sledgehammer. So I'm going to read that again, because this is the key, one of the keys to understanding why every circumcision injures a man. Every circumcision destroys the fundamental structure of the male sex organ. There's nothing extra about the foreskin. It is the sensory organ of the male sex organ, the sensory structure. It's got all the bells and whistles. So essentially, when you amputate the foreskin, you are creating a new kind of sex organ with devastating implications for human sexuality. And I'm not going to touch on it here, but a lot of you, if you've been familiar with this, you know that circumcised sex is totally different than normal sex. Circumcised sex generally, depending on a number of factors, circumcised sex generally people use lube. Americans use lube. Europeans, when they see the lube jokes on American sitcoms, they don't get it, because Europeans are intact. They do not circumcise boys in Europe, and they don't have to use lube for sex. So he says, determining how much foreskin to take off often presents difficulties for learners. Listen to this. The edge of the foreskin, this is Dr. Heitzman speaking, the edge of the foreskin should end up nice and tidy around the corona. Nice and tidy around the corona. Let's crush his foreskin, but we want to make sure we get a nice and tidy injury around the bottom of the glands, which is the bottom of the mushroom-shaped structure called the corona. So, nice and tidy. Thank you, doctor. We appreciate you caring about a nice and tidy injury. So now he's going on about clamps are applied at the 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock positions. I think it's, let's see. All right, so what he's doing now is he's separating. So I'm going to show you that. I did show you some of that earlier, but I'm going to show you that again now that I've gotten to his description of it. So see if I can turn this laptop toward me, because I want to keep it oriented so I can read this. I think I see how to do it. So what he means is, all right, so yeah, I thought it was normal. I had a boy and he had it. Sorry, that just scrolled out of sight. So what he's talking about now is no cutting. This is now, he's taken this virgin sex organ. This is a virgin sex organ. And what he's saying is, and this is called the foreskin on a man and the clitoral hood on a woman, they are called the prepuce. So this is called, and you have to imagine this is sealed shut. I've got it wide open for the purpose of this display. This is just a red balloon I've used, but it's sealed shut. So yeah, there we go. It's sealed shut. it has the dartos muscle opens and shuts the preputial opening for urination. Otherwise, it keeps the the interior sex organ of the child safe and protected from outside contaminants. So what he's saying to do now, he says apply 2 clamps at the 2 o'clock and 12 o'clock positions. So I'm sorry, at the 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock positions, but I was going to use this to show you exactly what he means. The top, this is medical terminology that they use, and some of you may be more familiar. But so this would be the 12 o'clock position, right? And the bottom would be the 6 o'clock position. So this would be approximately the 2 o'clock position right there. And this would be approximately the 10 o'clock position. So what he's saying is apply 2 clamps at the 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock positions on the distal foreskin. He means the top, as you're looking at it. And don't forget, the baby's already been strapped down at this point. I told you, Dr. Jackie and some very few doctors like to have the nurse hold the baby down, but by and large, I'd say well over 95%, if not more than that, of American babies are circumcised while being tied down, strapped down in a circumstraint, a circumcision board. So what he's saying to do is they have to rip open the virgin opening of the infant sex organ. They have to rip it open by inserting this steel tool in there. And he's saying insert it at the 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock positions. And you get the idea. I may not be able to exactly keep it at the 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock. He says, taking care to avoid the glands. This is the point at which a lot of babies are injured, because you can see if you're inserting this sharp tool, any kind of sharp steel tool, into a tiny, and I showed you how tiny it was earlier using the bell. This is the head of the baby's sex organ. The glands will actually go into that bell, so you can see how small it is. So this is one place where many mistakes are made and can be made, and that's why he issues this warning. He says, taking care to avoid the glands, because the glands is right there. Once you shove these tools in and open up the foreskin on the baby, and this, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is the point at which a lot of babies, they let out a terrible heart-rending shriek, a yell, a scream, and they fall unconscious. They mercifully. They're knocked out. The pain is so intense, so vast, so devastating. They fall unconscious right at this moment, at this very moment and I've heard numerous eyewitnesses to testify that when they begin to rip open the baby's foreskin, you can actually hear the sound. It sounds like ripping paper. He said, oh, listen to this. Yeah, he says, at this point, I'm reading from the article, at this point, it will be evident whether the anesthesia is working. They don't know. They don't know the anesthesia. That's why a lot of doctors don't use it, because the anesthesia often does not work. The babies scream holy hell when the doctor injects the needle in the base of their sex organ. So a lot of doctors they've given up. They do not use anesthesia. And you'll see what he says. He says it somewhere in this article. Yeah, it's in this paragraph. He says, taking care to avoid the glands, using your non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, so using your non-dominant hand, hold these clamps under gentle traction to keep the preputial orifice open. So what he's saying to do is is he's got you putting these clamps in, and then I guess it's a hemostat. There's a way to lock it, and then he wants you to hold it with, I'm right-handed, so I would hold it with my non-dominant hand, my left. Hold these clamps under gentle traction to keep the preputial orifice open. He says at this point, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen, at this point it will be evident whether the anesthesia is working. If you have waited a full 5 minutes since the lidocaine injection, the anesthesia is almost certain to have taken effect. However, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen, and this is very, very common. In fact, there's a notorious YouTube video. The doctor uses the anesthesia, and it did nothing. If you've waited a full 5 minutes, the anesthesia is almost certain to have taken effect. However, he says, if the anesthesia is not good, I usually, now note, he uses the word usually. He doesn't say he speaks as if it's very, very common. However, if the anesthesia is not good, I usually avoid giving additional lidocaine because of toxicity risks. Instead, I focus on completing the procedure quickly. So now he's basically saying, look, the baby's going to be in terrible pain. Just do it as fast as you can. That's what he's saying, ladies and gentlemen. That's what he's saying. The baby is going to be in terrible, terrible pain. And I know it, he's saying. So I focus on completing the procedure quickly. It's a nightmare from hell, ladies and gentlemen. Let me scroll down on this page here. So yeah, so I cannot show you these illustrations, but yeah, he's got these fiendish, they're essentially clamps. They're all pliers. Many of these medical tools they're like modified pliers, and that's what the hemostats are. So now he's gotten to the, and mind you, ladies and gentlemen, the circumcision has not even begun. We have not even begun the circumcision. Right now, all we're doing is preparing for the circumcision, which is essentially ripping open the sealed structure of the male sex organ, which entails vast, vast suffering, devastating trauma, torture. This is the torture of a living human being, ladies and gentlemen, torture. The head of the baby's sex organ, and for those of you just tuning in, I am avoiding the anatomical word that can lead to audio being muted. So the child's sex organ, the head of the child's sex organ is called the glans, G-L-A-N-S. The inner foreskin, and you can see that this red balloon is actually working pretty well, because you can see the inner foreskin, and you can actually see the little plastic tube that I used to represent the head of the child's sex organ. You can see it. It's in there like the glands, and you can see the foreskin around it. This is what he says. This is quote. His quote begins with the word next. So I'm quoting. Next, blunt, dissect the foreskin away from the glands. Now, I assume what he means by the word blunt is you don't want to use anything sharp. So that's what he means by blunt, dissect. And this is the point at which I've seen some doctors say, gently separate the foreskin from the glands. They are a sealed. What if someone told you to gently separate your fingernail from your finger? It's just words, ladies and gentlemen. Empty, hollow, baloney, BS words. This is torture. This is torture. He says, blunt, dissect the foreskin away from the glands using either a blunt-edged probe or a clamp. He says, I lubricate the tip of a probe with the petroleum gauze that will later be used as a dressing. Then insert the probe into the foreskin at the 12 o'clock position. So let me, so I'm not going to adhere to these, well, I mean, because you can see you have to visualize, we've already put 2 clamps that are holding this open. So he's saying he inserts his probe, and I've seen both. Doctors will use a hemostat, which is essentially a modified scissors, or the probe, which is like an ice pick, except without the sharp end. It's got like a little bulbous end so that it can't like stab the baby. So he uses a probe. It's called a circumcision probe. If you look up circumcision probe on Google, you'll see what it is. It's just a long rod. Insert the probe into the foreskin opening. I use the probe to make a track down to the coronal ring. Now this is terrifying, ladies and gentlemen, and I've seen it time and time again. And you get a true idea. You get a true idea of exactly how much of the sex organ skin is being removed. And mind you, this is the erogenous part of the sex organ of all mammals, and the human male. The foreskin is the motherboard of the male sex organ. It's where all the action is. And in fact, that's why cultures that sacrifice it, it's a loss. All sacrifices imply and entail a loss, and that's what this is. But I digress again, don't I? This is disturbing. This is really disturbing. I use the probe to make a track down to the coronal ring while tenting the skin upward to avoid entry into the urethra. Again, mind you, the pee hole, the pee opening of the glands is right in there, right? It's just insane. It's just insane, ladies and gentlemen. So he's just warning people, physicians who read his article, as much as possible. Like, look, you don't want to stick this into the urethra. And in fact, urethral injuries are very, very common out of circumcision. And I may or may not get a chance to talk to you about one of the most common complications of circumcision is meatostenosis, which is scar tissue around the urinary opening of the glands. But at any rate, I'm going to show you now and you can see this in circumcision videos. What they do is what he's saying to do, tent it. What he means is you're inserting this into the foreskin, and now you have to visualize the interior, and this is what he's saying to do. Do you see how I'm tenting it? That's what he's saying to do. So you can see we've gone about half the length of the visible sex organ. And because this is a balloon, I can't twirl it around. But basically, they use the hemostat, or like I said, some will use the probe itself, which is just a long rod with a blunt end, and they twirl it around. They twirl it around to rip, and this is when you can hear the sound like of ripping paper. And I'm rotating it to show you, but imagine that the balloon that the foreskin is stable here, and I'm showing you how you can actually see in the videos. You can actually see because the foreskin is very, very thin, and so you can actually see these fiendish tools working their way as they destroy the connection between the inner foreskin and the head of the male sex organ. Just absolutely fiendish, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it is. That's what they do. And mind you, the baby's sex organ has not even been put into the Gomco clamp yet. This is just preparing. This is just preparing for the circumcision, ladies and gentlemen, just preparing. And already, many of these babies are unconscious, it's a knockout punch. It's a knockout punch. And the scientific evidence is strong, and there's no question. This causes lasting brain trauma that has an effect on the developing brain of the child, and the child's brain never returns to normal after circumcision. So I showed you that. I'm not going to belabor it anymore. He says, I use the probe to make a track down to the coronal ring. Oh, that's the thing I can't show you in this, is that when they're doing this deal, you can actually, as they twirl that around, you can actually see the outline. You know how bulbous and mushroom-shaped the head of the male sex organ is. You can actually see it. You can see these. You can see the hemostats or the probe. You can see them twirling around, and you can see the outline of the mushroom shape is very, very evident beneath it. It is such a sexual violation of a child, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolute sexual assault. So he says, after the track is created, I insert a lubricated clamp and open it in gentle. There's that word gentle I was telling you about, how they soothe their conscience, that there's anything gentle about ripping open a child's sex organ and destroying its fundamental structure. In gentle sweeping motions around the glands to break up adhesions. And again, this is when you can hear the sound of ripping paper. Each time, oh, listen to this. I mean, this is an instruction manual, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show you this again to accentuate the horror. So this is what he's doing. This is what he's describing right now. He says, each time I spread the blades of the clamp opening, let me backtrack one sentence. After the track is created, I insert a lubricated clamp and open it in gentle sweeping motions around the glands to break up adhesions. Each time I spread the blades of the clamp open, they do it. I mean, this is how they do it, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen it. I mean, they open it really because they're breaking these adhesions. The pain, the baby is undergoing severe, the greatest pain that he will ever suffer in his life as a man. The greatest pain for the most part. Most men, that's what Dr. Paul Fleisch said. Most men will never come close to suffering the way they suffer during infant circumcision. Each time I spread the blades of the clamp open, I gently withdraw them from the sex organ in order to close them under visualization to avoid a crushing injury to the glands. So what he's saying is that he'll do that sweep and then he'll pull it out, and then he just wants to check it out. Probably what he means is he's then pulling down the foreskin to show the glands. Because that's the ultimate object, is to make sure that he has separated the inner foreskin from the glands, from the head of the newborn sex organ. And for those just tuning in, newborn sex organ, TikTok's been pretty good about it, but I have seen the proper anatomical word for the male sex organ can get a video muted. TikTok always brings the video back with its audio, but I don't want to risk having this live broadcast muted. So that's why I'm using the words newborn sex organ rather than the proper anatomical term. So now he's just going on about, he says, so now he's using fancy language, blunt dissect circumferentially all the way to the frenulum at the 6 o'clock position, but do not dissect away the frenulum. It has a little arteriole and will bleed. And the frenulum is it's sort of a little ropey structure under at the junction. If you look underneath the glands, even a circumcised man will have some residue of the frenulum. Some doctors, he's saying leave the frenulum alone, but some doctors just cut the frenulum off too. It's like an elastic ligament or structure that ultimately is the only connection between the foreskin and the glands itself. All right, so let me go to the next paragraph. And I'm scrolling past his figure 6. A crush line is made at the 12 o'clock position. Oh, okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're getting close to beginning the circumcision itself. You can see the baby's been to hell, and I wish I could say and back, but there is no going back. The baby is being thrust into hell, and there's no out. There's no out for the child. I'm going to catch my breath for a second here. Actually, you know what? Will you bear with me? I'm going to get a drink of water. I didn't prepare. I'll be right. Give me 30 seconds. I'm going to get a drink of water. Actually, you know what? Let me play a video for you from Gil Headley. This is the video I posted yesterday. I'll just play this while I'm just going to be gone 30 seconds, but I posted it yesterday on my TikTok channel, the channel you're watching right now, and it's Gil Headley foreskin function, and you will see it.
Tact, or as nature intended. So the foreskin, what's amazing about it? Well, number one, it's interestingly accommodating. It's an accommodating tissue. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, much as the skin of your elbow is accommodating, right? When it's bent, it's kind of wrinkly, and then the elbow stretches out and the skin becomes more taut. The erectile tissue of the human penis is an expandable tissue. It can fill with blood and become larger. So the foreskin accommodates the erection. The skin draping over the flaccid penis isn't extra skin. It's the shaft skin of the erect penis. So because this is an organ that changes its length and size, depending upon what's going on, kind of like this. So if I put my little sock puppet on here, here's the erect penis, and the foreskin has been used up or accommodated to cover the erection. And if I were to go flaccid here, then we see that the foreskin is tapered over the end of the glands, which you have to see in there, right? So here it comes out, and we have the erection, and then we have here the flaccid penis, and there can be more or less force. And I strongly encourage you to check out, after this live broadcast, check out my channel. You will see I'm posting up as many informational and educational videos as I can. And that is the video by Gil Headley that I posted yesterday. Right. You don't have to be a doctor to have the facts. No. And European doctors condemn American circumcision. Preparing for insertion of the bell. This is where it's really going to get. You think this has been torturous so far, ladies and gentlemen.
This is going to escalate right now. The horror is going to escalate. I'll finish my water here. This is probably going to take me another half hour. TikTok will save this live video in my settings, and I will be able to. The reason I'm being so thorough, I told viewers earlier, the reason I'm being so thorough is that I don't want to have to do this again. This is very, very disturbing, very, very disturbing to do. This is almost a reenactment of what I and millions, tens of millions of American men suffered on the first day or in the first few days of our lives. And this has had a profound, a severely destructive and devastating effect, not only on the individual men who have suffered it, but on everyone who loves them and on society itself. There's a cumulative sociological effect when a majority of the nation's men have suffered this devastating sexual genital injury at birth. It's an experiment unlike any other in human history, because every other nation that ever circumcised boys did it publicly, but they did not claim it was medicine, and doctors did not do it. It was generally done by family members or religious leaders or skilled technicians who earned their livelihood by doing it. But in the United States, it's become a secret experiment on American boys. They don't call it that. They would not dare to call it an experiment. But if you look at it historically, even conceptually, American doctors have no idea of the extent of the harm they are doing to individual men, to the boys, to the men they become, and to society as a whole. The cumulative effect, the sociological effect. And unfortunately, the circumcision industry in America has a lobby. They managed to get the CDC on their side. And so it's very difficult for scholars to get any kind of funding to even study the injuries and the devastating psychological and sociological and sexual effects of infant circumcision on men and cumulatively on American society. Okay, I'm just about done with my water. And Julie, moderator Julie, thank you. Julie, my friend Julie Diane is on here blocking people that are trying to disrupt this live broadcast. Thank you, Julie Diane. I'm just about done with my water. Okay, I think I'm ready. I'm ready for the main act here. This was just the warm-up, ladies and gentlemen. This was just the warm-up. This was just the warm-up. Someone says, well, I'm not gonna reply to people. Let me just say this, that if your sons have grown up, they are not going to tell you about their sex life. And many grown men do not know. They believe that what they feel is what every man feels, and it's not so. Many men suffer in silence from various pains and injuries associated with circumcision. I have to watch my language here, as all of you who are here on TikTok understand that. Have to be as discreet as I can be. All right, I'm ready to begin. This is Contemporary Pediatrics. I'm reading from Contemporary Pediatrics, preparing for the insertion of the bell. So this is the part. If the baby is still awake at this point, hasn't fallen into unconsciousness, this is the part that gets the next group of babies that fall into unconsciousness. Many of these babies they're just screaming their heads off. They're just screaming their heads off, as you can imagine. This is torture. So we're now going to prepare for the insertion of the bell. And it sounds insane when I read it. But I'm looking right at the screen, right at the article. And you can see this fiendish device disassembled right in front of me here. I'm going to be assembling it momentarily as we follow his directions. So what he's saying is, and I'm using these scissors. These are multi-purpose. I'm using them to simulate what he calls the circumcision probe, hemostats, and now he says a straight clamp. Now, when a doctor says a straight clamp, what he means a scissors-like medical clamp like this, but it doesn't. It has blunt edges, not scissor sharp edges. But what he's saying is, so to recap, where we've gotten to so far is we went through how the doctor had to rip open the foreskin, tear apart the membranes that connect the glands, tear apart those membranes that connect the inner foreskin to the glands, to the head of the baby's sex organ. So that's where we've gotten. That's where we've gotten to at this point. So, but the foreskin is still attached. I mean, the foreskin is still attached to the skin system of the sex organ, which it is an extension of. It's the sensory structure of the skin system of the male sex organ. As you go down from the foreskin, the skin lower down toward the groin does not have specialized nerve endings the way the foreskin does. All these specialized nerve and the sensory, all the sensory nerves are in the foreskin itself. So now what he wants us to do, he wants us to create, this is his word, and I've seen it used in every article. It's called and it's medical terminology, a crush line. So what he's saying, what he's saying to do is we insert, and imagine these are not scissors now. This is blunt. It's a medical clamp, but they're like pliers, really. I've noticed many of these medical devices are just redesigned pliers. So what he's saying to do is you insert half of it into the male sex organ, and you create a crush line. And this is fiendish, ladies and gentlemen. I think I can actually squeeze this. I don't think it will cut this balloon. If it does, I can still do it might even work better. But, and when they say crush line, can you imagine taking a pair of pliers and putting any body part in between the two sides of the pliers? We are creating a crush line, ladies and gentlemen. It's not cutting off. Well, think if you take a pair of pliers and you put a piece of paper or cardboard, think of a thin piece of cardboard, and you can crush the cardboard. It doesn't actually break it or separate it, but this is what he's doing. And they actually can then, he calls it a clamp. They actually can clamp this in place. And they will leave that. Let's see if he says it. I'll tell you what I've seen from experience. So he wants you to create a crush line on the dorsal aspect. That's the top, as we're looking down, like if you were looking down at your own sex organ, male sex organ. You create a crush line at the 12 o'clock position. He says, again, tent the skin up as you advance the lower blade of the clamp in order to avoid entry into the urethra, which is the pee hole in the glands. The crush line should stop about 1 centimeter distal to the coronal sulcus. And the one thing I can't show you here, that because this is just a model I've made. As they're doing this, you can actually see the glands. You can actually see the head of the male sex organ is outlined. I mean, you can see it. The foreskin is thin. You can see it. So they shove these medical pliers. They shove them all the way past the glands, basically to the coronal. The coronal sulcus is where it dips down, and like if you were standing under a mushroom, it's the bottom of the mushroom. You need only keep the clamp on for a few seconds to create the crush line. Well, I have seen some doctors say they clamp it and they keep it on for like 5 minutes. And I think often it could be because they're doing assembly line circumcisions and they move on to the next baby. Big city hospitals will circumcise 5 and even 10 babies at a time. They line them up assembly line style, and they'll have 3 or 4 doctors, and so the crush line. But he says you can do the crush line in a few seconds. He says keep the clamp on for a few seconds to create the crush line. Next, he says, cut down the middle of the crush line with scissors that have at least 1 blunt-tipped blade. So I guess what he means by that, and again, these must be medical scissors. So let me pull that out. Okay, so that did not, right, I was crushing it the whole time. I kept the pressure on it. So what he's saying now, so you pull that clamp out and you come back with now another specialty medical scissors. And what he's saying apparently is that this part of the scissors, the medical scissors that he will use, does not have a sharp end. He's saying cut down the middle of the crush line with scissors that have at least 1 blunt-tipped blade. You are creating an opening through which the bell will later be inserted. It need only be large enough to accommodate the bell. If the cut edge of the crush line bleeds, listen to this, if the cut end of the crush line bleeds, briefly crush that edge again with the cut. I mean, it's never ending torture for this baby, ladies and gentlemen. So the bottom line is what he's saying to do now is you come in now with medical scissors, and now you're cutting the foreskin. That did cut. That did cut. So I did cut that there. I didn't cut it straight. I came at it different, and the scissors actually worked so yeah. So actually that works. It's not a straight line. Sorry about that. Like I said, I've never actually practiced this part of it before. Okay, so there we have it. We have now cut the foreskin, and I'm not even sure I cut it down far enough. No, I didn't. Let's see if we can cut it. It's got to be cut further. Okay, I don't want to be accused of exaggerating, so that's about, it's a little under half of the length. But that's it. And that's all so that we can get this foreskin pulled through the Gomco clamp. And there's the glands of the male sex organ now. So there we have, we've cut the foreskin, and now we've got the glands. This is nightmarish. This is nightmarish for me, ladies and gentlemen. So if the cut edge of the crush line bleeds, briefly crush that edge again. And I'm scrolling down his article, and again there he has very graphic illustrations. Figure 7, the foreskin is cut down the middle of the crush line. We're going to be assembling this in just a second. With the 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock clamps still attached. So yeah, you have to imagine that I've seen pictures where that poor baby is lying there, and there are like four different metal, iron, steel, stainless steel medical devices, instruments, laying on top of his groin. And I've often wondered, this is an aside, I've often wondered, you know, the babies, they can feel that weight. They can feel that weight on their groin. The doctors just, they use the baby's groin as an operating theater. He says the foreskin can now be retracted. Oh, okay. So yeah. So that's what he's saying. And again, I've seen this in all the all the videos. So what they do now that they have, now that we've cut the foreskin, what they do, what I've seen them do, and what he's saying to do, is pull back that foreskin and make sure that you can see all the adhesions. All the adhesions have been ripped loose. He says, failure to break down all of the adhesions is cited as the primary reason for a poor cosmetic result. Can you imagine that? This is the same guy who said he wants a tidy cut at the coronal ridge. As before, he said, respect. Look, he dares to use the word respect. As before, respect the ventral. That's the underside. If you're looking down at a man's sex organ, the ventral is the underside, and that's where the frenulum is. He said, as before, respect the ventral frenulum. Respect. What part of respect does this pediatrician not understand? There is nothing about this nightmare that shows respect for the child. Nothing. But he says, respect the ventral frenulum, since it tends to bleed if disturbed. Again, he speaks from long experience. However, he says, don't make sure there's no adhesions. However, do free up. What he means is rip apart. But he says, do free up adhesions just lateral to the frenulum. He means no adhesions left behind. So I'm going past another figure. Figure 8, the non-dominant hand holds the glands. So what he's saying, so this is what he's saying to do. So he's saying the non-dominant hand, so that's my left hand, the non-dominant hand holds the glands while the other hand sweeps downward on the adhesions. So, and I've seen, they do it. It's that crude, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen them. They just scrape it. They scrape it because these are natural adhesions that often don't resolve or dissolve. They slowly dissolve as a boy matures, but very often that process takes until or about puberty. The average age is about 10 years old when the foreskin separates. But so here we have it. They will take any kind of tool. He says use gauze. It's a nightmare from circumcision is a nightmare. It's corrupt from top to bottom, ladies and gentlemen. It's not medicine. Just we are dealing with a severe psychosexual crime against our sons, against the American people. This is criminal behavior, ladies and gentlemen. But because it is ubiquitous in American hospitals and medical clinics, we tend not to think of it or conceive of it or theorize it as a crime. But what I am showing you today, ladies and gentlemen, is a crime. This is criminal. This is criminal to cut open to operate on a child's sex organ. All the world condemns female circumcision. All the world condemns female circumcision. Our job is to get through to people, to parents. Boys suffer just as much as girls. Boys suffer just as much as girls. And this suffering, this injury has lifelong consequences for all of us as individuals and as a society. So now, inserting a bell. So we've ripped open the boy's sex organ. We've pulled back the foreskin. We've ripped loose the adhesions. Now get a load of this, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm reading from Dr. Heitzman's article, Contemporary Pediatrics, How to Use the Gomco Clamp. Quote, inserting the bell. This is the bell. This is the bell. Inserting the bell with the glands exposed. Determine which size bell will best cover the glands completely. He says 1.3 centimeters is the most commonly used size. And I showed you earlier in this broadcast that and this is a Gomco clamp that I got online. It's the real deal. It's a 1.1. And in the article, if you've just tuned in, earlier in this live broadcast, I showed you this, and the most common sizes are 1.1, 1.3, and 1.4. And the differences between them are, well, minuscule in centimeters. So with the glands exposed, determine which size bell will best cover the glands completely. Too small a bell will force you to pull, this is his article, too small a bell will force you to pull more foreskin than underlying mucosa through the hole in the base plate. We haven't even begun to talk about the mucosal tissue. The inner foreskin is all mucosal tissue, ladies and gentlemen. Think of the inside of your mouth. Think of the inside of your mouth. That is mucosal tissue. The inner foreskin is mucosal tissue. And the circumcision amputates all the mucosal tissue of the male sex organ. All of it. So he says, too small a bell will force you to pull more foreskin than underlying mucosa through the hole in the base plate. And too large a bell will tent the foreskin up away from the shaft, making it hard to see landmarks. What he means by landmarks is he's talking about the glands underneath it. And I also believe he's referring to in these instructions, he had you using a marker pen to mark the cut line at the base of the glands. He says, I wipe the edge of the bell with the petroleum gauze. This helps it slip off the foreskin at the end of the procedure, and apply the bell to the glands. Make sure that the bell completely covers the glands. So let's see here. So we've got the bell is completely covering the glands. And this is how they do it, ladies and gentlemen. This balloon is, I've never actually cut the balloon before. When I was on Daniel Tosh interviewed me. When I was on with Daniel Tosh, he and I, and you can see that on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and type in Tosh.0 and the word circumcision. And you will see my interview with Tosh. He and I, we did an abbreviated version of this Gomco clamp demonstration. But if you want to see Daniel Tosh, and I should add that Daniel Tosh is strongly against infant circumcision. That's why he invited me to Hollywood to be on his show. But you'll appreciate what he did, and he's on our side. But at any rate, so there it is, the bell, the glands, the foreskin. The bell over the glands. All right, let's see what he says now. Make sure the bell completely covers the glands, that the arms of the bell remain perpendicular. Oh, so this is what he's, so I guess these two little structures here, I believe, would be called the arms. I haven't done my homework, ladies and gentlemen. This is very, I mean, I've done some, but to realize that those must be what he means by the arms of the bell. And what he means is you want to make sure this is straight. You don't want this like, you want to make sure that this bell is snug over the glands. Make sure that the bell completely covers the glands and that the arms of the bell remain perpendicular to the axis of the patient. Oh, the patient. So this child being tortured, strapped down and tortured, is the patient. I mean, the euphemisms in this nightmare, the genital mutilation of American boys, it's all euphemisms all the time. Let me scroll down now. Okay. This is where the safety pin, and I almost wish I had a safety pin because you're probably going to see me struggle to get this done, but that will be instructive anyway, because I have the pliers. That's actually why I have the pliers. And I've seen doctors use pliers, but a lot of them, someone said, what is a circumcision? What in God's name does a safety pin have to do with circumcision? Well, look, you see, let me bring this up. I'm trying to stay on the camera side of this so that I can keep it framed, but I'm going to come over the side here. Okay, so you see, we've got the, so I've extended the foreskin up the shaft of the bell. These are the bell arms. Placing the base plate over the bell. The next step is to place the base plate over the bell. There are many variations on how to do this, he says. Yes, and I teach the safety pin method since this technique seems easiest to grasp conceptually. And I looked around for a safety pin last night. I didn't have one, and I thought, but you know what? I'm not sure how a safety pin would work anyway with the balloon, with this red balloon, and I have the pliers. So this could get a little tricky, but bear with me because you will see how the Gomco clamp gets assembled and the fiendish way that it works. But I will read you what he says about the safety pin, and I'll point to it. He says, I'm not using a safety pin. I'm going to use tweezers instead of a safety pin. But there's a number of ways that doctors do it, and many. I can't say that all of them use the safety pin. Many do, but many don't. A safety pin pierces both corners of the cut foreskin. So this is how fiendish it is, ladies and gentlemen. He's saying that part of the cut foreskin and this part of the cut foreskin, you want to reconnect them. You want to reconnect them with a safety pin. You want to reconnect them with a safety pin, ladies and gentlemen, because you can't get you have to cut the foreskin down like this to get the bell over it. you can't get the bell. I'm sure they tried, but you can't get the bell properly seated over the glands and to visualize it without cutting the foreskin like this. If they could do it without this, they would, because it would make it easier. It would make their job easier. Now, I've been pulling on this thing so much it's come down here. I'm actually going to pull it down a little bit. Let me reset that. It's this balloon material is hard to work with. All right, so you understand. So, all right, so we've got the bell in place. So what he's saying now is the problem in getting this through, and why they like the safety pin is, look, if you look at this, you can't just pull this for, well, let me start assembling it and you'll get an idea. I think I'm going to leave, let's see. Well, let me see what he says, because I know how to do it from this point on. But let's see what he says. Hold the bell with the foreskin protracted back over it. Yeah, so he's saying, you know, just like what you see, what I've done here, you want the foreskin placed then over this whole device. And this is how they do it. This is how they do it in the hospitals, ladies and gentlemen. Next, pierce the distal corners of the cut dorsal foreskin with a safety pin. So he wants us to pin that together. Make sure to pierce, oh, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. He says, make sure to pierce through the outer foreskin and inner mucosal layers. The foreskin is double. It's like a double fold of special tissue. Think of your lower lip. Feel your lower lip right now. Put one finger inside and one finger outside. That's the inside of your lower lip is mucosal. The outside, there's no space in between. It's one structure. The outside is skin. Well, that's what the foreskin is like, ladies and gentlemen. The inner foreskin is mucosal. The outer foreskin is like dry skin. But foreskin is specialized skin. But mind you, that's the comparison of the inner lip and the outer lip. You've got mucosal tissue inside, and outside it's normal. What is apparently normal skin. So he says, make sure to pierce through the outer foreskin and inner mucosal layers of each corner. Secure the safety pin, and he's got illustrations. He's got very, very graphic photos. If you want to follow along with me, you can see this. If you Google YouTube, Contemporary Pediatrics, Gomco clamp by Dr. Nathan Heitzman, you can actually follow along with me on this if you are able to look at it on another device. Probably can't watch this live and also bring up the internet. But secure the safety pin and align it parallel to the stem of the bell. Okay, so. Oops. And I know these kind of accidents, you know, things falling everywhere happen with doctors too. So this is called, he calls this the stem of the bell. So these are the arms of the bell. This is the stem. And this is the bell itself. The bell is over the foreskin. This may be a little challenging for me, but I think I'll be able to do it. So bear with me. Secure the safety pin and align it parallel to the stem of the bell. So he wants, when we pull this through the plate, you're going to see it. The safety pin takes away all doubt as to whether you've got the whole. You don't want a lopsided circumcision, and that happens all the time. Men grow up and have lopsided, and they think it's normal. they have lopsided the part of the skin on their sex organ is longer than on the other side. And it just, I mean, this is also arbitrary. There's no cut here line. If the physician is having a bad day, they'll cut more. They'll cut more. If they're having a good day, they might cut less. Lower the whole of the base plate over the stem of the bell. Okay, so this is what he's saying. This is, and I showed you this earlier. So this is the base plate. This is an authentic, this is the real deal. This is a Gomco clamp. And this is the 1.1 centimeter. So, and I showed you earlier that actually these little arms of the bell, one, if you look, this one's a little longer than that one. And so there's an art to getting this through. And I only figured it out last night. I've always, even with Tosh, when I was on the Tosh show, he and I were trying to figure it out, and because it's such a subtle difference. But, and I'm not even sure if I remember. Let's see. I think you have to put it in the, yeah. So to disassemble it, you go in the opposite way. But so to put the base plate over the long arm and then the short arm, and you can see. All right, so now we're partway there. This is where the doctors like the safety pin, because then they can do this, and that safety pin, they can put that safety pin and pull that safety pin right up through that hole, and they do it all the time, and then they don't have to wrestle and struggle with the foreskin, which you're going to get more of an idea of as you see me struggle to get this balloon through. But that's why they have the safety pin. They just aim the safety pin. They aim the safety pin through that hole, and then they pull it up. They pull it up through the base plate. But I think with the tweezers I can. Yeah. All right. Okay. So I got that hooked. So I should be able to get this done with tweezers, hopefully. And I've seen them do this, ladies and gentlemen. They sit there and they wrestle. They are literally pulling the foreskin through this hole. Let me show you where we are. See, there's the, oops, I just slipped. Okay, no, all right, so that's good. So you see, this is the baby's sex organ. The glans is now tucked away in that bell, and we're now trying to pull the foreskin through the base plate. Not sure if it might be better just to use my fingers rather than the tweezers. But I've seen the doctors. I've seen them wrestle with it, but they pull it. They pull it. I think it might be easier if I let the bell back a little bit. And you can imagine a lot of these guys and women, men and women both, are circumcising these boys, and they have to solve all these problems. There's a learning curve for anyone who operates on such a small body and such a wasted education to become a physician, and to learn to have to learn this is just really, really unfair. I can't tell if the foreskin is ripping on me further, so I may not be able to get this perfectly seated the way they want it to. This is why they do safety pin it together. You can see I've got the two. I think I've just about got it. So I'm gonna call that good enough. For the purposes of this display, I'm gonna call that good enough, because you understand. All right. And I've seen, it looks like that, ladies and gentlemen. The foreskin will actually go up the stem of the bell like that. They are pulling through half the, prior to the circumcision, about half of the visible outer structure of the male sex organ. They are pulling it through this hole in the bell. So he says, draw the foreskin evenly through the hole using your ink mark as a guide. Yeah, so remember, he had an ink mark around the foreskin at the point at which he wanted to. So that's why and I'm on now, that was figure 10. The base plate is lowered over the stem of the bell and the safety pin until it rests against the flare of the bell. A clamp is used to pull an even amount of foreskin through the base plate. Ideally, this should be done before application of the rocker arm. All right, so if this thing doesn't collapse on me, we are pretty close to assembling. And they have to do this. They have to do this for... there's no shortcuts on this, but some of these guys, they learn to do it pretty fast. I have no words, ladies and gentlemen. This is just a nightmare. Completing assembly of the clamp. And now I'm reading from his article. Completing assembly of the clamp, preparing to cut. Next, while holding the stem of the bell, that's the stem of the bell. While holding the stem of the bell and the safety pin, imagine that's why he doesn't want. So we're doing a sloppy circumcision here. Apologize for the sloppy circumcision, ladies and gentlemen. Use your other hand to place the yoke of the rocker arm under the arms of the bell. So what he means here, okay, I may have actually learned how to assemble this better today. I've never read instructions so thoroughly and so precisely and carefully, ladies and gentlemen. So I may be learning today why I've had problems in the past assembling this bell. So what he's saying to do is place the yoke of the rocker arm. So this is called the rocker arm. And one interesting thing I should point out, there's an authoritative report. You see the shape of this. The shape. This is the rocker arm. Let me show you this. This rocker arm has a very, very interesting history. The evil geniuses who came up with this device were said, someone contemporary to them who knew them, said that they were inspired by the tire iron from a Model T. Apparently the tire iron for the Model T, you know how you have to take off, I guess, to take off a hubcap, or was it a tire? Must have been a tire. You know how there's like a device and it's, you get leverage. And he thought, let's just use that same idea for a circumcision. And he revolutionized Goldstein revolution, and he called it the Gomco, Goldstein Manufacturing Company. Goldstein revolutionized American circumcision by inventing this fiendish device, said to be inspired by a tire iron for a Model T. And you can see it. You can see how it would, how you'd get the this would be, I guess, the fulcrum. And you know, the one guy said, give me a lever long enough and a spot to stand, I can move the world. Well, so this is capable of with the leverage you get here, but it's upside down, which is why it's confusing. It's confusing if you can't visualize that it actually, this is a lever that is actually going to apply thousands of pounds of pressure to the foreskin once we insert it. You can see it. and it's upside down, but he came up with this evil contraption based on a Model T tire iron. And honestly, this clamp should not have survived the Model T. So he says, place the yoke of the rocker arm under the arms of the bell. So what he wants me to do is, let me give you a close-up of that too so you can see that. It's all very precisely engineered. So I never thought of that. Honestly, I didn't. Yeah, it's going to be tough to, does it fit differently depending on what side you're on? Oh, I see. It only works. Remember I told you how one of the arms is shorter. That's the short arm, and that's the long arm. Well, this device will only fit this. Again, I did not realize this until right now. This device, and I'm sure all of you will forgive me for not having done my homework on this nightmarish device. But you're learning with me. So this, I'm going to read that again. Use your other hand. Yeah, I'm holding this. He says, hold this with your non-dominant hand. And he's saying, use your other hand. So I'm right-handed. To place the yoke of the rocker arm okay, so that's not the side that works. So this is the side that works. Place the yoke of the rocker arm. Now the big question, will I be able to turn it to get it? Yeah, I think I can. I'm just getting it in position to, because you can see this is going to slip over this. I'm sure there's a name for this stuff. Let's see what he... Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, this baby is either unconscious at this point or he's awake, and these babies are screaming bloody murder. I mean, it is terrifying how they scream. Make sure the ridge, he says, make sure the ridge on the bottom of the rocker arm fits nicely into the notch of the base plate. Double check to make sure that the apex of the dorsal slit extends, blah, blah, yeah. So, I'm going to turn it like that. Hopefully it turns. Yeah, I think so. Did it turn? Yeah, got it. I think I got it. I think I got, yeah. Oh, I'll be darned. Yeah. I don't have a perfect fit. I'm not sure if it's... I don't know if I have a perfect fit or not, or if it's just that I think it might actually be a perfect fit. It's just that, oh no, I see what it is. I think there's little grooves here. Make sure that the ridge on the bottom of the rocker arm, so he's talking about this ridge right here. Can you see that? There's a ridge on either side. That one went into its little slot, but this one didn't. And this has happened to me before when I try to assemble it. Make sure that the ridge on the bottom of the rocker arm fits nicely into the notch on the base plate. So that's the notch. So let me see if, usually I have to then loosen. Oh, okay. All right. Now I got it. Okay. Now I got it. All right. So yeah. So you see, This is the baby's sex organ. And if you followed along this whole thing, you now know that the foreskin has been separated from the head, from the glands of the sex organ, and the glands of the sex organ has been pulled up through the plate of the Gomco clamp. And it's actually the glands of the, if this were glass and you could see what's underneath, you would see the head of the baby's sex organ right here. You would see the head of the baby's sex organ right here. See, because look, see, here's the bell. See, I pulled the foreskin down. See the bell? So if this Gomco clamp was made of glass, you would see the head of the baby's sex organ right there. That's the bell. That's it. And the whole purpose of this is to protect the head of the baby's sex organ from the knife that is about to amputate the foreskin, which we've pulled up over the stem of the bell. There's one more thing we have to do. We have to put the, I'll read from him. Again, if you want to follow along, I'm reading from Contemporary Pediatrics, How to Use the Gomco Clamp by Dr. Nathan Heitzman. Double check. He's saying double check, double check. Oh, listen to this sentence, ladies and gentlemen. If you need to adjust the amount of tissue that has been pulled through the base plate, so he's saying, my battery is running low on my laptop. So I may not be able to read the rest of that. I just got a warning. I've had my laptop running on battery this whole time. Hold on, I'm going to go get my battery and plug it in because I really want to finish this with that. I'm going to give you, I need about 60 seconds to hook up my battery. I'm going to play the video by Gil. I'm going to continue. I've been playing you Foreskin Education. This is on my page. I posted it yesterday.
Skin, depending upon the person. Just like somebody has different
I'll be right back.
Arm or length of nose or earlobe, you can have a different amount of foreskin, more or less, relative to the erectile tissue or just that person's given endowment. So, number one, the foreskin is accommodating. It accommodates the erection. Number two, the foreskin is sensitive. So this is the pars intima, the intimate aspect of ourself. They're very sensitive, right? And so the foreskin is full of sensory nerve fibers.
Okay, I'm going to hook my battery up to my laptop.
As nature intended. So there's quite a lot of innervation. I can't say what number. It's kind of irrelevant. The point is, if you've got one, it feels good. More innervated than the glands, in fact. So the foreskin is the most erogenous tissue of the whole organ of the penis.
Okay, I got my laptop.
So accommodating and very sensitive.
Okay, so I got my laptop plugged in. Thank you for bearing with me. Because this has been really a good article to do. I've learned so much by just doing it slowly like this. You can imagine it. This is not reading that anyone wants to do. So he says, if you need to adjust the amount of tissue, foreskin, if you need to adjust the amount of tissue that has been pulled through the base plate, most authorities recommend removing the rocker arm from the bell and pulling the bell away. Oh, so he's saying if you want to, if you look and you decide you either have pulled too much foreskin through or not enough, he's saying don't try to don't try to take a shortcut. He's saying most authorities recommend removing the rocker arm from the bell and pulling the bell away from the base plate. Failure to do this could result in shearing of blood vessels as you try to pull more foreskin through the base plate. So he's saying once you have this, even if you haven't clamped it down, you see, because we haven't clamped it down yet, we still are, you see this little space right here? See that? See that? This is what's going to happen. We're going to look. In fact, you can see it. You see as I exert pressure just with my fingers. Do you see? Do you see the leverage that you can see how it's an upside down lever? So you can see when I screw the when I put the screw in place, it's going to, and you see, I believe this is called the fulcrum. And so as you push that down, it pulls this up. It pulls this up. And that means that the bell, which is precisely engineered to fit through this hole, it will essentially strangulate and, for all practical purposes, cut off the foreskin. You have to finish the job with a scalpel or a knife. I'll finish it with scissors today. I do have a knife that I could use, but it's like not a hunting knife, like a pocket knife. So I think it'd be better to use scissors. But you can see it. See the gap? See this gap right here? That gap. So we're going to put the nut on. See how that goes up and down? All right. So he says, if you need to adjust, and listen to this, I mean, because there are serious things that can and do go wrong with circumcisions. And that's not just the normal damage of circumcision. This is the extraordinary damage. If you need to adjust the amount of foreskin, he says tissue, that has been pulled through the base plate, this is the base plate, through the base plate, most authorities recommend removing the rocker arm from the bell and pulling the bell away from the base plate. So he's basically saying, kind of undo everything you've spent the last 5 minutes doing. Because he says, this is Dr. Heisman, failure to do this could result in shearing of blood vessels as you try to pull more foreskin through the base plate. So, and it's clear that has happened. He wouldn't know it, and he wouldn't issue such a warning if he didn't know it. So some physicians will think, oh hell, I didn't pull enough through. They haven't tightened the clamp nut down yet. But even just this mere device sitting in place, it exerts a tremendous force on this, just because of the design. How you saw how tightly it's all engineered. So, but some of these idiots, they'll think, oh, I want to pull, I'm going to pull some more of that foreskin through, or, oh, hell, I didn't pull, and they'll try to pull some out. What he's saying is that can result in shearing of blood vessels. So that can and does happen, ladies and gentlemen. So now he says, and we're almost done now, ladies and gentlemen. If you've been with me through part or all of this live video, thank you for bearing with me. I doubt very much I'll ever be doing anything like this again, although it's possible with what I've learned doing this today, I could streamline it down to a half hour, but I don't know. This is extremely disturbing. Move this stuff out of the way. So now what he says is, let me set it down here. By this point, Dr. Weitzman goes on in his article, by this point, you have measured twice. So he's saying, just be careful of all your measurements here, and are ready to cut once. You can't cut twice. Any carpenter knows that too. and he's borrowed language from the carpentry trade. Tighten the nut to secure the rocker arm to the base plate. Okay, so now the circumcision has reached the critical point. This is it. It all comes down to this. This is what it's all gone for, ladies and gentlemen. And we've got a little washer here. So I'll put the washer on. And this is the nut. And I will show you what happens as we tighten this. Watch this space. It seems such a small space, but watch. And watch that space, and you'll see what the doctor is now doing to this poor child. All right, so got a pretty good view there. Let me get so you can see the space. You can see how much the total crushing power. Oh, because listen to what he says. Tighten the nut to secure the rocker arm. Remember, this is the rocker arm. To the base plate. This is the base plate. This is the nut. Tighten the nut to secure the rocker arm to the base plate. With this action, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. With this action, you are applying 8,000 to 20,000 pounds of hemostatic force against the foreskin, and you are committed to what you will remove. It seems like you were committed a long time before this, bro, but you can see, ladies and gentlemen, it is essentially like taking a vice grip, and applying it to any body part that you can imagine. And if you've done any kind of work around your house, you know what a vice grip can do. We are now taking a vice grip and we are crushing the baby's sex organ. The fundamental, foundational structure of the male sex organ. And you can watch. I'm going to bring it in close. You can watch. You can watch as I'm going to now tighten the nut and watch with this. He says you are now applying 8,000 to 20,000 pounds of hemostatic force. Do you see? Do you see it going down, ladies and gentlemen? It's fiendish. Fiendish. And do you see? And that's it. There's no space. There's no gap. No gap. Oh, but we're not done. We're not done. You are applying 8,000 to 20,000 pounds of hemostatic force. I believe that's PSI, pounds per square inch. I calculated some years ago, and I believe I came up with a figure of 10. I did some research with vice grips, and I came up with a figure of about 10 to 15,000 pounds. He probably calculated himself. So he came up with 10,000 to 8,000 to 20,000 PSIs. So he's got figure 11. And if you want to see this article or follow along in this article, it's Contemporary Pediatrics, How to Use the Gomco Clamp by Dr. Nathan Heitzman. Now he says, and I believe this is the final paragraph that I'm going to deal with on this. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think it is. I've had about all I can take of this crap. He says, you may cut the foreskin off at any time after the nut is secure. However, leave the clamp on for 5 minutes. Oh, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. He wants you to leave the clamp on for 5 minutes. That's to prevent bleeding when you remove it. That's to the coagulation. Make sure that it will not bleed when you take the Gomco clamp off. But listen to what he says. However, leave the clamp on for 5 minutes. Now, if you're a doctor, 5 minutes, depending on what your specialty is, that can be $1,000. But you know what he says? I'm reading right from the article. He says, you, meaning you, the person who's just committed this crime upon the baby, you can use this time to hone your bedside manner. Coo at the baby. Work the pacifier. So now we've got this line on the baby's groin, and he's cooing at the baby. He's cooing at this baby who may or may not be awake, who may be screaming his head off, but he's certainly not a baby that gives one damn whether some adult is cooing at him. After 5 minutes, oh, we didn't cut the foreskin. So I'm not going to cut the foreskin. Well, actually, maybe I should cut the foreskin off here. Actually, I think, let's cut the foreskin off here. Because I can show you how I've seen them do it too. Okay, so we just cut the main part of the foreskin off. They use scalpels. So, but I've seen them, they go around. Yeah, so you get the idea. I don't think it's going to work with a balloon. At any rate, you can see it. I'm not going to bother removing all the foreskin. You can see that, you can see the bell there. I mean, I've seen them. They'll go by. Then they'll go back with the scalpel, and they'll like they're in a kitchen. They'll go and they'll scrape the whole thing clear. They'll look for little microscopic pieces of foreskin that'll be there, and they'll scrape the whole thing clear. And if you ever see an old used Gomco clamp, you'll wonder why there's all these scratches and scuffs, and that's what they're doing. So I can't do that with the balloon. But all right, so after 5 minutes, loosen the nut and disassemble the device. So, just to show you in reverse, and you'll get an idea of the kind of pressure that we used on this poor baby. Keep your eye on this space here as I loosen the nut. Watch this space right here. You'll see that space open up. See? And that's the fiendish amputation machine that revolutionized circumcision in the United States. Most men that are circumcised have been circumcised with this device, the Gomco. I was cut with it, and I think most of my friends were. See what he says. Oh yeah, I read this. If you've been here throughout the whole video, I read this at the beginning, Figure 12, and he shows this bloody nightmare of a newborn sex organ. It's just repulsive what he's done. to this baby. But this is what he says. The result, the foreskin should look nice and tidy near the corona. So, nice and tidy, ladies and gentlemen. Nice and tidy. What he says now is, despite the temptation, oh, listen to this. He's warning you. And he feels the same temptation. This is in his article. Despite the temptation to quickly appraise the result, I apply immediate pressure with gauze and hold for 1 minute. So he wants a decision. He wants to appraise it so that he can decide how it looks. He wants to know if he succeeded or didn't. After that, he says, I assess for any bleeding and sometimes apply an absorbable hemostat. He's talking about stuff to avoid bleeding. He says, if all else fails, an absorbable stitch may be placed at a bleeding point. Bleeding is always a danger in circumcision, ladies and gentlemen. You can see why. Some nurseries, he says, make sure the infant urinates before being discharged home after a circumcision. He says, but this is probably not necessary. And then he gives aftercare and follow-up. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's I'm gonna take a break, get away from this nightmare. But this is you've seen how the Gomco clamp works, and you can see why it is our responsibility, ladies and gentlemen. It is our responsibility to end this nightmare for American boys. We can't expect someone else to do it for us. We cannot expect someone else to do it for us. It's up to us to do it. And of course, we're going to run into obstacles. We're going to run into angry men who don't want to believe that they were injured. Every circumcision injures a man. It's the very nature of the injury. Every circumcision injures a man. When he's a newborn and can't fight back. It is not a valid parental decision. Parents do not have the right, and doctors do not have the right to cut off part of a child's sex organ, a healthy child's sex organ. There is no parental right. There is no physician right. They have usurped that right. All human beings have a fundamental human right to intact genitals and to be protected from the nightmare of genital mutilation when they are children. I will be in Florida with the Bloodstained Men Road Crew from January 20th to February 1st. We will post up the schedule for the Florida tour in a matter of days at our website, bloodstainedmen.com, and we welcome you to join us. All our protests are family friendly. We welcome you to join us on the front lines of the struggle for human rights in the United States, because circumcision is not medicine and never will be. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will save this live video and prepare parts of it for rebroadcast on this YouTube channel. And you can go back and see some of the content that I've been posting on this page. And I think you will find something of value to share with your friends or to share on your page. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Do what you can, and that's our job. That's our job, is to protect our children.